Hello everybody. I decided it would be a good idea to do a little short introduction to this weekly report from the top of a mountain in Griffith Park in Los Angeles. I finally am getting some sun after being deprived of that for a little bit in Europe. It's really pretty beautiful here. It's really nice and peaceful, except for the fact that there is an electricity pylon right in front of me. You may be able to hear that sizzle in the background. But I am just reveling in a little bit of warmth. And I thought it would be a good opportunity to talk about this upcoming week's energies. Mercury went direct a few days, 2 days ago, and we should be feeling a lot of forward movement as a result of that. It's kind of amazing to see what's coming up in the next week and the next month even, but particularly in the next week when we have Venus and Jupiter conjuncting at the Galactic Center, which is really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Those two planets are the benefic planets, and they are in they're just essentially aligned to make some massive shifts possible. So be aware of that and keep your eyes and ears open. Stay open to everything that can possibly come your way. And we also have Neptune going direct shortly. Excuse me. Woo! Thanks, Neptune. Which is also going to be interesting, because that is really about finding your way out of patterns that had you trapped in disillusionment, because Neptune does represent the imagination, the illusory, the magical in many ways. But because it's been retrograde for a little while, a lot of that stuff has been tested within us. We've been sort of having to face the deeper meaning of what it means to be out of alignment with the flow of our environment and feeling like what's going on inside of us doesn't really match the outside. And now some kind of ethereal shift is on the horizon, and we hopefully will feel that in ways that are empowering. Anyway, I will be doing a reading once I have finished my hike and I am refreshed. But in the meantime, I just wanted to make this little outdoor video to give you a little bit of a sense of how different circumstances can be from literally one day to the next in the world that we live in. Anyway, I will be back later, and a special shout out to my sister who is celebrating her birthday today, and I will be back very soon. Hi everybody. I know this week my reading is totally gonna be, well, looking like this, which is a mess. I don't know what's going on, I'm just coughing. I've been traveling, so as you can see, I'm not anywhere where I'm settled, and so I don't even have a tripod set up or anything, so I am doing this reading with my phone propped up on my toiletry bag and the Spirit Animal Oracle deck box. So this does not mean that we cannot do a reading, so I'm here. Got some interesting cards this week, as I talked to you about a little earlier on when I was doing my hike. It's really, really interesting shifts astrologically this week. So for the sake of saving you from hearing me say the same things twice, I will just go directly into the reading. And this week we got as our overall underlying energy the Knight of Cups. Very interesting. This tells me that this is going to be a week where we're going to feel like receiving emotionally. We are coming into a time of forward movement, fast forward movement in the case of the Knight of Cups. And there could be some very interesting new relationship dynamics on the horizon. New people coming at us with their emotional gifts. And so be open. It doesn't necessarily have to be a new person. It can be somebody else in your life who you get to reconnect with on a soul level. And it was clarified by the Nine of Pentacles, which is the card of self-sufficiency and bountifulness. And so this tells me that what we are looking at is the fusional flow from our relationships with those around us into a sense of self-satisfaction. And I guess that's kind of like a little bit of a paradox of life, isn't it? That the more autonomous we become, the more inclined we are to feel gracefully part of community. In our underlying past energies, we have the King of Swords, clarified by the Two of Wands, and the Justice card. Now, we did have the Justice card in last week's reading, and I believe the week before too. So the fact that it's in the past underlying energy makes perfect sense. This tells me that we're coming out of a period where we had to stand strong in ourselves for the purpose of getting ourselves to the next step. It's about acknowledging how far we've come and having that sense of accomplishment in terms of the work that we've done on ourselves, both intellectually and emotionally, and that we've done the work of being honest with ourselves, which in turn allows us to carry honesty in ourselves as we communicate ourselves out to those around us. The Justice card, I think, is there to remind us that the whole process of the karmic cycle that we've just ended was in order to come into that fundamental sense of balance, of maybe even paying our karmic dues, and therefore balancing out sufficiently in order to move forward. We talked about that, the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, coming into this balance between those two elements that are always necessary in order for us to expand. It was also clarified with the Two of Wands, as I said, and the Two of Wands is a decision, but it is an informed and an inspiring decision. So, well, yeah, I think that's self-explanatory. I certainly understand what that means for myself, so I hope that you see that in your own, on your own journey too. We also have the Queen of Pentacles, clarified by the Knight of Swords. So we've got these swords clarifying what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that we have this sword energy that is pretty intense. Like, I'm looking and I'm seeing, actually there's quite a few cards here in the, well, in each line of the reading that there are swords. So this to me indicates a lot of action, and the fact that we have the Queen of Swords, I mean, oh my goodness, sorry, I am jet lagged, forgive me, my words are occasionally escaping me. The Queen of Pentacles is a woman who is in she's in control of her fulfillment. She is a very generous figure. So this could mean that we found ourselves depending on this sort of motherly energy, that this was a very important part of our evolutionary process, was being an acceptance of what others have given to us in order to progress. The Knight of Swords, clarifying it, to me indicates that there was a lot of swift movement in this. This could actually mean that there was a lot of financial movement from a source of support, of warm, loving support. Of course, it doesn't have to be money. It can be any type of support that you might have received. We also have the Six of Cups, clarified by the last judgment in this card, which is Judgment in the regular Rider-Waite deck. Six of Cups is that card of coming into a balanced communication between the parent within ourselves and the child within ourselves. And it is also a card of nostalgia. It can be that we've spent a good part of that karmic journey that has closed coming back to ourselves, coming back to learning to be at peace with our past and receiving the gift of surrendering the stories that the narrative that we've held on to that was keeping us small. And this has happened through a journey of revisiting the past, of having the opportunity to perhaps even be reunited with people from our past, or, you know, our childhoods, or some other significant period of time in our lives. It's a beautiful energy, and coupled with the Judgment card, it really does, I feel like all of this past energy is basically talking about the actual characteristics of that karmic cycle that has closed. So we came into knowing our truth, we came into finding the ability to receive, and we came into nurturing our inner child. In the present, we have the Chariot. This I'm taking to have a meaning on 2 levels. First, on the literal level, it is a card of travel. So there may be a lot of movement. It doesn't necessarily even mean you yourself, but it could be people in your life. That travel becomes, forward movement becomes very predominant in the defining energies of the next week or so. Clarified by the Star and the Page of Swords, Princess of Swords in this deck. Both of these clarifiers that came out together sort of gave me, that's why I'm talking about the duality, that there's that literal level of travel and movement, but it is also, as we've discussed before, the card of balance between the conscious and the subconscious mind. Maybe because we have completed the karmic cycle, we're now coming into a time where we actually are able to embody these gifts, embody this flow that we have come into knowing. And the Star would be the confirmation of that, because as we've seen, unfortunately, this is not a picture card, but in the Rider-Waite, this is the card with the naked woman pouring her knowledge into the pool of the subconscious mind, and then being in perfect alignment in terms of her 7 chakras and enlightenment and so on and so forth, nourishing, nurturing the infinite flow of life within and without. And so we have that dynamic, and then the Page of Swords being a further confirmation of that sort of that energy of, now it's like we're coming into a place where we carry that truth that we have come into acknowledgement of, and we're at the very beginning of learning how to actually instigate. And I actually just intuitively got the message that it's actually also about that because we're at the very beginning of a new karmic cycle, we may be finding ourselves sort of being a little bit slower in our approach to how we take on new experiences, because we're maybe not entirely sure of ourselves. Well, it's just like being reborn in a certain way. It's like going out into the world, having learned from one karmic cycle, a very long one, as we discussed, about the last 12 years of our lives, and so we're kind of like babies going out into the world again, and learning how to confront challenges and receive opportunities. It's like, when we're new to something, we can be awkward or even a little graceless. But that's okay, because we have come into acceptance of the relationship that we have as a self-parent to our inner child. So we may stumble or have little moments where our flaws are exposed, but we are in acceptance of those things. because everybody has them. And anybody who's trying to pretend that they're not has not done the work on themselves. Interestingly, in our present, we also have the Sun, a beautiful card, telling us that we are in an energy of extreme potential for happiness and, yeah, just a general feeling of joy, abundance, and feeling like the future looks bright, you know? And interestingly, it was clarified by the moon. Of course, the sun and the moon have a very dynamic relationship. And well, two things that I got from this. First of all, the moon is the card of intuition. It is the card of the mother. It is the card of inner nurturing and guidance. And I also got from this that it's a timestamp telling us that the lunar eclipse, I think it's a lunar eclipse, or is it it's either a lunar or a solar eclipse, I can't remember which, I will get to that eventually, taking place on Christmas or on Boxing Day, the day after Christmas, depending on what culture you are in or where you are living in the world. There will be an eclipse that day, and there's some significance to that in this reading. It's the central card to this, so I feel like all of these energies are geared towards something, some type of experience that will take place around that time. We also have the Page of Pentacles, clarified by the Wheel of Fortune. As this is the sort of the energy that's moving us into the future. At the time that I'm doing this reading, that will be for the week beginning Saturday the 23rd. We're going to see a movement towards... There's a lot of cards here that seem to indicate that there's opportunity on the horizon, that things are, you know, this next week we're coming out of a very intense shift in energy. We may find ourselves sort of ready to receive the next step, and there may be a little bit of a slowdown or a little bit of sort of like a, you know, having to start a little bit smaller than where we would like to be, you know? But the Wheel of Fortune is there to tell us that, you know, whatever we receive, no matter how small the opportunity is or the gift, these things are planting massive seeds of change. And that's going to happen quite intensely and quite quickly once that wheel is turning. And I think the confirmation of this is that the next card in our future energy is the Ace of Pentacles. So that is the pentacle that this page is carrying, but it's reinforced as the idea that, like, if we accept on a daily basis, if we're in gratitude and we accept the small gifts with grace and an open heart and mind, the universe provides a much bigger gift in the not too distant future. And it is pretty big, whatever it is, because we also have the Empress clarifying the Ace of Pentacles. The Empress being the card of fertility, of abundance, of opportunity, of plentifulness, of being in the fullness of our potential. And this is speaking to the characteristics of this new karmic cycle. It's not just limited to the next week. This is qualifying the cycle we're moving into. How this abundance and this fertility and this opportunity manifests obviously is going to depend on all of us individually, but it's also to be revealed in the weeks and months ahead. But it's some pretty nice energy there. On a more mundane level, perhaps, we find ourselves in this energy in the future, next week or so. The Two of Wands, this is that informed choice again that we had as a clarifier to that King of Swords in our past. So in this case, we've talked about this before. The Two of Swords, this guy has the world in his hands. So the decision that he has to make, he's empowered in making that decision. And he's not making a decision based upon need. He's making a decision based upon inspiration. And the only way, because, in all decisions, if we have two choices, we have to drop one of them. And that was interesting because we got that clarified first by the Five of Swords, which I couldn't understand why, so I pulled another clarifier. We got the Two of Pentacles. So, this is the idea that when we are carrying two pentacles, we're juggling. And because it clarified on the heels of us just having that Page of Pentacles and the Ace of Pentacles, this is about perhaps in whatever we're going to receive, this big gift that we will be receiving from the universe, maybe the problem is that we might find ourselves attached to the illusion of an opportunity that, or an opportunity that doesn't really serve us. And that we might find ourselves in the position of having to change our priorities in order to accept a gift that suits us better and suits our well-being and our spiritual path a little bit better. The Five of Swords tells me that there could be a little bit of outside resistance to this. So I don't know exactly what that means, but none of it is negative. It's just simply that, you have to stay in your power and you have to stand tall on your own journey. And remember that you carry that power within, and that these things are, the gifts that we're offered, it is our choice to... It is our right to choose the path that suits our needs and the bigger picture. So, yeah, you may have some people around you that are resistant to the type of decisions that you want to make. Now, this is not belligerent. This is not something particularly negative. It's just simply that, perhaps you're just going through like there's so much energy, like strong energy right now. You may be going through quite an upheaval in life, and it could be an internal upheaval too. It doesn't necessarily just have to be external, but it's like there's big shifts taking place. And, when we change the narrative in our own lives, which is our right, it can be very difficult for other people to follow, because, as we've talked about before, when we change our own narrative, that forces other people to change theirs. And there's a lot of people that just don't want to, they don't want to make that effort. And that's their prerogative, but it's also on them to accept other people's changes. And if they can't, then as with everything in life, we move along and we put our trust in the universe that those situations will be resolved with, again, grace and gratitude. Can't go wrong if you stick grace and gratitude in everything, even the most uncomfortable of situations. And finally, we have the Lovers, another card of choice. And again, I say the same thing every time, but the Lovers is a false choice, because we choose. Nobody's going to choose what they don't love. They choose what they love. So you have a choice between something you love and something you don't love. You're going to choose the thing that you love, unless you're a masochist. And there are plenty of those in the world, but we don't have to talk about that. We've moved past that on our journey, remember. That said, interestingly, it was clarified by two cards. The Eight of Pentacles, which is the card of work. It is the card of craftsmanship. It is the card of cultivation. And the Ten of Cups, which is the card of ultimate emotional fulfillment. And so, you know what? I'm going to take one more card on that, because I would like to... I don't think it's a choice between those two things. It seems to be telling us that I think that there's going to be a lot of choices, and good choices, good opportunities, and it may be about the fulfillment of both of those realms in our life. But there's something about that choice that we're not... Oh, okay. We got the Two of Cups. So, and that is very interesting, because that Venus Jupiter conjunction has a lot of potential for love, companionship, and you know, if you're not in a position where you're likely to have a new romantic situation arise, then it could simply be the fulfillment that you can have in an already existing relationship, a sense of emotional abundance within a relationship, within many relationships perhaps even. But those of you that are single, there's a lot of cards here indicating that that could change. Anyway, I feel like that reading was really positive, but a little all over the place. So prepare for that, because it could be a week where you're a little bit all over the place, emotionally and in terms of opportunity, and it's just all forward movement, and it's all good stuff, but a lot of it. So we are going to move on to the spirit animal oracle card of the week, and it is Elephant Spirit. And Elephant Spirit's underlying message is, interestingly, learn from the past. I was not expecting this card to come up. A very beautiful card, as you can see. They all are in this deck. My mother gave this deck to me. I wasn't really thinking about learning from the past, because personally I've been very focused on forward movement, but I do realize that coming into a new cycle requires of us to ground ourselves somewhat, because it's not like we just move on from a karmic cycle and forget everything about it. And maybe that's a bit of what this is all about, is that we have to honor our journey and remember where we've come from. So let's read the message. Okay. The oracle message of Elephant Spirit is, although we often wish we could leave the past behind, Elephant Spirit reminds us that memory matters. We must respect the wisdom of the elders who hand down to us traditions that have shaped to express our connection to each other and respect for the community. What has come before informs what we are experiencing today, and we must never forget our legacy of strength and dignity. Elephant Spirit appears with the message that we are to acknowledge that which came before and learn from it. All of us are memory-based creatures, and we must revisit the past to understand where we are and where we are going, see? The stories of events you experienced, the stories in our collective memory, and the stories of relationships you have had can be told many ways. See, that's what we were talking about narratives. Different people have different narratives, and we can change our narrative. And, well, I'm going off on a tangent, so I'll let the card speak for itself. Sorry about that. What story will you tell? Elephant Spirit is here to encourage you to make it one that stirs in you a sense of power and dignity, for you have honored yourself by choosing to learn from your past. Spirit rejoices at your willingness to learn and grow. The protection message, which generally, I think you probably gathered that from previous readings, it's sort of like when we, any forward movement, any guidance comes with sort of a pro and a con. So it gives us the opportunity when we're struggling to see things from, if we're looking at things, a glass half full perspective, then the oracle message is pretty much the guidance. And then there's occasionally moments where, even though nothing's changed in that cup, we're looking at it as being half empty. And so the protection message sort of is the uplifting message for when we find ourselves in that dynamic. So here we go. Are you feeling uncomfortable with a tradition, custom, or familiar behavior that no longer fits who you are? Do you wish the past could be erased so it could no longer cause you a moment's pain? Elephant Spirit is here to encourage you to write a different story and alter the traditions in ways that acknowledge that we all evolve, for transformation is our nature. Elephant Spirit calls you to not be selective in your memory, because ignoring the good or the bad will prevent you from growing your wisdom and strength. Build on the best of the past, learn from the worst, and walk into the future with dignity, accompanied by Elephant Spirit, who remembers the truth and honors your strength and wisdom. Interesting. Well, I will let you inject that message into the reading that we've just completed, because I need to ponder that myself. But in any case, it's been a great pleasure doing this reading for you. I have no idea what my setup will be next week, but I think this was kind of nice doing it this way. Again, if I seem a little loopy, it's because I am. I wish you a fantastic, wonderful week, and I send you all tons of love, and I can tell you that I certainly am feeling this sun, because I literally was in the sun for 3.5 hours today, and boy oh boy did that feel like a revival for me. So may that be the conduit of all your choices and experiences for the next week. I wish you love peace, and, as so many say in the community, namaste.